The billionaire observed the young maid sobbing on the phone in the hotel hallway the next morning. Her tears seemed so quiet, yet full of a desperate weight. Unable to ignore her, he invited her to his mansion. The hallways of the Grand Meridian Hotel were empty, quiet under the soft glow of wall sconces and the moonlight streaming through large windows. It was nearly midnight, and the corridor was peaceful, except for Lena, curled up near the supply closet. She pulled her knees to her chest and whispered into the phone, her voice shaking with sorrow. "No, Mama, please don't sell the wedding ring, not Papa's ring. I'll find a way, I swear. Just a few more days, please." Her voice cracked as she heard her mother's faint, sobbing reply, "Your sister needs the medicine tomorrow." Lena bit her lip, tears threatening to fall. "I'll do overtime." Distracted by his phone. Andrew Callahan, CEO of Callahan Equity, had just wrapped up a transcontinental call. But when he heard her voice, he paused. Something about her pain struck him, something beyond just the sounds of distress. Lena wiped away her tears, stood, and forced herself to straighten up. She ended the call, tucking her phone away and adjusting her cleaning cart. Her eyes were red and her hands trembled, but she worked with a quiet, disciplined grace, knocking on the next door with a practiced, forced smile. Andrew stood silently, watching her from a distance. He could have walked away, continued with his night, but something about her, a glimpse of strength beneath the vulnerability, stayed with him. The following morning, Lena returned to her usual duties, but the weight of last night still lingered in her eyes. She had barely slept, calculating how many hours she could work before exhaustion overtook her. As she reached the corner room, a man in a gray suit approached her. He wasn't a guest. He wasn't a manager. He was Andrew. And he stopped her, not with pity, but with a quiet intensity. "I overheard you last night," he said, his tone calm but firm. "I wasn't complaining, but I think you could use a different kind of opportunity." Lena flinched, unsure what he meant. He handed her a sleek, dark card with his name and address. "If you're open to something else, come by tonight at 7. No strings attached." She stared at the card, her hands trembling. But this time, not from fear. She didn't know why. She felt drawn to his words, but she couldn't dismiss them. "Why me?" she asked. He studied her for a moment, considering. "Because you didn't break. You cried, and then you went back to work." That night, Lena hesitated before no cold, imposing walls, but an old, colonial-style house with warmth spilling from the windows. The door opened before she knocked, revealing a woman in her 50s who greeted her kindly. "I'm Mara. Andrew's expecting you." Inside, Lena was led to a sunroom filled with quiet, peace, and a pot of tea. 10 minutes later, Andrew entered, dressed casually, without the weight of his suit. He was still composed, but more human in a way that made Lena feel she could breathe. "I want to offer you a job," he said simply, sitting down across from her. "Not charity. You'll live here, help Mara with the house, assist with organizing some things. Nothing glamorous, but it's a chance." Lena looked at him, uncertain. "What kind of job?" "Something simple. I'm digitizing my father's estate, reading through old documents. It's boring work, but I need someone who pays attention to the small details. And I think you can do that." Lena's heart pounded, not from fear of it all. "Why me?" Andrew hesitated. I don't know yet, but I trust that I'll find out. Lena was torn between the familiarity of her life at the hotel and the strange possibility before her. But in the end, she agreed to stay. As the days passed, Lena settled into the rhythm of the house. It was strange at first, being somewhere where she wasn't just a worker, a maid to be unnoticed. Here, she was part of something, however small. She cleaned, sorted, and began to see things differently. She began to see herself differently. One morning, after sorting through letters from Andrew's late father, she paused, realizing that in this place, she wasn't just surviving anymore. She was living. Andrew came and went, quietly present, but he saw her, saw the way she worked, the way she carried herself, not just as a maid, but as someone who refused to give up. He never asked about her past, but she found herself sharing it with him. Little by little, her sister's diabetes, they had faced. The weight of survival had always been on her shoulders, but now she found herself asking, what happens next? The question lingered between them, unspoken but understood. Weeks later, Lena proposed an idea to Mara to start a small community workshop in the unused space in the estate. It was a simple plan, but one that gave people a chance to learn, to rebuild, to find dignity in small, everyday tasks. Andrew helped, of course, but it was Lena's vision that took shape. And when the grand opening came, she stood there, clipboard in hand, watching people arrive. Families, neighbors, those who once had whispered about her. But she wasn't afraid anymore. And then, in the midst of the ceremony, Andrew stood and spoke to the crowd, his voice steady. He didn't talk about business or success. He talked about Lena. This is Lena. She's taught more than just sewing. She's taught us all how to rebuild. Wasn't about praise. It was about acknowledgement, about being seen. Later that night, as the guests began to leave, Andrew turned to Lena, the ring in his hand. I've chosen you every day since you came into my life, he said, and I want to keep choosing you. Lena looked at the ring, simple but familiar. It was one she had sketched years ago in a notebook, a design she had never shared. Andrew had found it, had made it his own. I don't rewritten to retain its emotional core and depth.